I mean, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with a build, and things can go wrong, and you really have to be on top of it. I think it is an incredible experience, but it's also a really hard one.
Building involves more than just personal style. It's about budget, functionality, working with your specific site, and making sure your home seamlessly integrates into your life. I'm Sam Payne, and welcome to Australian Build Stories. Join me as we chat with real people who've embarked on their own building journey. We'll explore their highs, lows, and valuable lessons they learned along the way. Australian Build Stories, building knowledge one story at a time. Hello and welcome to Australian Build Stories. In today's episode, I am speaking with Gino, who has renovated a house before, and today is actually speaking not about that renovation, but about the house he currently lives in, which is a two-storey home that he owner-built. So he speaks about the owner-building process that he went through with his wife, Myaree, and the other thing is that aside from having gone through the owner build and renovated before, Gino is also the general manager of Homebase. So this episode has got some great design advice, talks about who owner building is suited to, some really key things that you need to know if you're going down that path, and it's an absolute must listen to anyone considering an owner build, and also really valuable for others going through the build process. On the project team also included Gino's dad, who was a bricklayer, and that was a really key piece that helped them. And it's certainly about going through an owner build, about having either some knowledge there or some people that you can lean on to help you through that process. And to celebrate this episode, we also have a link in our bio on Instagram, as well as on our website, for a survey. The survey is only 7 questions. It'll take you about 5 minutes. And if you fill that out, there's a chance to win a 6-week interior design course, which is courtesy of Homebase Perth. So it is one for the Perth residents only. It's valued at $800 and it's for a couple. And that could be a couple of friends or it could be a couple. So have a look at that one on the website or on Instagram. And besides that, yeah, enjoy the episode. This episode is proudly sponsored by Homebase Design and Build Centre, Australia's largest building and renovating destination. Gino.
Sam.
Thank you for having me in your lovely home tonight.
Thank you.
So we've spoken a little bit about some of your journey, and we've known each other for quite a few years, and there's some pieces there that I didn't know. So it was great to learn a little bit about that. But I guess today we're talking particularly about owner building a house, which is something you've done a couple of times.
Yes.
And you've got the benefit, I guess, of having a bit of a project partner in your dad and your wife.
Yes, absolutely.
But going back to how it started with this house and deciding to own a build, was it something you were like, we're definitely owner building, we know we're going to do it? And did you have key reasons why, or could you potentially have been building with a builder?
Yeah, look, for us, it was we were living in Coogee and we knew we wanted to be closer to the city. So we were really just looking for opportunities and we just couldn't get into the market. So we found this property in Wembley, which we were really excited about. And we loved the street and we knew a little bit about the sort of history of the street, and decided that it would be the right thing to do. It was definitely not a renovation. It was like a yellow brick sort of 70s house. It had about 8 bedrooms in it. I think they'd cut the 4 bedrooms into half to fit all their kids in. It was quite a rabbit warren. So for us, it was, well, particularly for me, I think Myaree was really wanting to do a reno, but I was like, this is a no-go zone. and I think the build then became the obvious choice, and we weren't sort of keen to knock down a character home. So this home was perfect. It had no character. And so our approach was to let's build something, which then turned into let's own a build something.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that is that we had done it before. I had done the reno at Coogee, and all of a sudden Dad was interested again to help out, which was probably the only reason we did go ahead. And so we did. We made the decision to own a build, and super grateful for having gone through that process to be able to have what we have. So,
And then going back a little step in terms of you decided not to renovate, and I think that's quite telling because a lot of people will see these houses and they go, "Yeah, let's renovate," but there's obviously an understanding that you go, "Okay, well, every single room and every single wall we're going to have to be touching, and we're going to basically end up rebuilding the house while trying to keep all the walls there."
yeah, correct. We essentially did that at our old house. We just blew the back half of the house out, but we kept the character of the front 3 rooms, which was really important to us. This house had no character whatsoever. So the idea of trying to just create something from what it wasn't the ideal approach. It also didn't use the block to the best of its ability. So there were a lot of things that we considered in all of that to make that decision. But yeah, it was definitely a good move. I think it was a great way to create something pretty special, but also keeping in character with the suburb. So
Yep.
yeah.
And is it important that people who own a building are making that decision at the outset, or is it something that can quite naturally just happen later on in the process?
We see a lot of smaller renovations and like granny flat additions and that kind of stuff being undertaken by owner builders. And that's a great way to do it. Like
Good first step.
really
Absolutely.
great way to kind of sink your teeth into something and to kind of understand the process, to feel comfortable with it, and to do something that you can control.
Even a not owner builder isn't required, but for a bathroom and kitchen renovation, do those yourself because you're dealing with a lot of the same trades you would deal with in a house build. You've got your electrician, you've got your plumber, you've got tilers, waterproofers. There could be a carpenter involved. There's a lot of organising in a small space over a small window of time. So
absolutely
organise those. That can also be a good.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in the process, then get hands on somehow. A lot of people are a little bit scared off by having to do that, and that's okay, and that's fine. I totally get it. There have been some moments and some discussions with people who were wanting to undertake an owner builder project that were like, you really shouldn't be doing that. This is not gonna turn out well. Not able to read plans and not understanding what trades would be needed and required, and sort of just the general gist of how things work. I think you can kind of pick that up pretty quick. That's not gonna save you any money whatsoever.
The builder has a margin for a reason.
Correct. Yeah, and absolutely deserve to. I think it is a big undertaking. Yeah.
And then, what was the conversation like with your dad? Was it just, "Hey, Dad, do you feel like owner building another place with me again?"
Pretty much. I was like, "Dad, we found this block, this house, this block of land in Wembley. What do you think? This is what we're thinking." And he was on it. He really was excited to do it. I think Dad and I had a really great time doing the Coogee house, actually. It probably was something that brought us closer together from a relationship perspective, which was really nice. And he was really keen to help out on this one as well. So I don't think, I 100% would not have done it if Dad wasn't keen. So he kind of did say, I've got to do one more before I retire. So we certainly got blood out of him. He worked really hard on this place. And yeah, again, really lucky that we had that. And again, I don't think that we would have got to the level of this house and the level of finishing this house if we were to have gone through a builder. And I think you can definitely achieve that through a builder. That's, absolutely 100% you can. It just was that at that time we had a very strict budget. We were trying to build something that was, for us, a long-term investment, a family home, something that we could feel at home in, and it would be welcoming and all of those things. So to do that, we had to figure out the best way to do it sort of financially. And for us, and given my dad and given the connections I have in the industry, it was the right thing for us at that time. So absolutely no regrets about that. But gosh, it was a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in terms of starting it off, so you found the block and worked out that as nice as the 8-bedroom home was, you wanted to knock it down and start from scratch. Did you have a clear idea of what the house was that you wanted to build, or did you speak with lots of different designers or architects, or how did that next phase start?
We were pretty clear on what we wanted. We have big families, so home is about entertaining and having people over and being able to kind of share that space. And for us, it was about making sure that we had a home that could do that and that we could grow into, and but didn't have sort of superfluous rooms and didn't have theatre rooms and all that kind of stuff. They were just good sized rooms that we could live in and enjoy, and essentially be comfortable in. So that was our focus.
And then you guys had a really clear idea on what you wanted. So what was the process like for getting those plans?
It was actually pretty good. We were really lucky to work with a building designer who got what we wanted really quick. I think uh, really understood light in the home. So during the day, this house is so beautifully lit. There's so much natural light coming in, but also looking at it from the perspective of energy efficiency and cross breezes, and how do we make that work, and what kind of windows are we going to use to not only make sure we stick with the character of the home, but also make it work efficiently. And so all of those things were things that he took very quickly and really kind of created something quite special for us. We were obviously very hands on in that process, but he nailed it essentially very
Yeah.
quickly.
And then in terms of people who are thinking of the owner builder approach, how much documentation in the plans and like how much detail should they be looking at?
As much as humanly possible. I think we see some really fun things at Homebase with owner builders where they come in and they're like, I want to do this. And we're like, so where are your plans? And they're like, here. And it's one page. And you're like, so where's all the detail? And they're like, oh, we can work that out. And we're like, oh, that's not really the way you should be doing things. And you really need to make sure that you've got all of this nutted out, and engineering and, all of these things. And I think it's then that people realize what's involved. It's all well and good to have a beautiful little sketch of a floor plan and a lovely facade, but there's a lot of detail that needs to go into that, and I think it's really important. And part of what we do from an education perspective at Homebase is making sure that people understand that from an owner builder perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did the designer do like a lot of internal elevations and like lots of sections and details? Do you remember?
He did a bit. So there were a few areas that we wanted that done, and then there were a few areas that, like the kitchen, for example, where we wanted to work with a kitchen designer. So we was like, just leave that. Let's do the structure. Let's know what we've got. Let's see where the services need to go. Let's get all that sorted out. But from an elevation perspective, we then worked with a kitchen and bathroom designer to help with those and nut those out in detail.
And then when you say kitchen designer, was it a company who doing the design as part of the service of creating the cabinets as well?
Yeah, correct. So we managed to work really closely with them, and their approach was all about creating spaces that really worked. And so, the laundry was a really great example. We had a good old rectangular laundry, but we needed to incorporate storage, and we needed to make sure that it was functional, and she created some incredible concealed cabinetry and little secret doors that allowed us to have a laundry hanging zone, and then a linen cupboard, and all of those kind of things. So it was great to be able to work with those blank spaces, other than saying, right, well, here's the water and here's the drain, and that's what we've got. So I'm working around those.
I think it's a really good point that you mentioned using the kitchen designer, because I think a lot of people, when they go into the process, they put a lot of faith in either they might be going down the path with a builder who does it all, it's a turnkey solution, or they might be engaging a building designer or an architect. But if you go into like an architect or building designer's website, you might see 10 or 20 homes on there. But a kitchen designer, they're doing like the volume of kitchens they're doing, their understanding of how people operate in the kitchen is at a far more nuanced level than most designers out there. And
Absolutely.
what you can get from them for a space, which typically for most people adds so much to your
Mm.
your daily rituals.
Absolutely. The questions that were asked were, how do you use your kitchen? And we don't normally put a sink on the island bench, but we might need to consider that because this is the way you're going to work. And here are the different zones in your kitchen, and creating a coffee zone and a cooking zone and a prep zone, and then taking the scullery or the butler's pantry and creating, a pantry and a prep zone and a drop zone, and kind of being able to do that in a really effective way was invaluable. And I think, again, even just the way that you work in a kitchen, and where do you chop and where do you put things into the bin, and all of those, like you said, nuances, they understand it. And I would go as far as to say the next time we undertake a project, that will be the thing that we do for every single area of the home. It's probably one of the things I wish we had the budget for, which was to have full interior design and full finishes and full everything for every single detail of the house, because that's what creates a home. Not just the sort of the walls and the bits and pieces, but it's all of those beautiful finishes and the way that you feel when you walk into a home, and the way that you use the rooms and the way that things are stored, and all of those beautiful little moments are what create an incredible home. And I think the more we have deep dived into the industry and ensconced ourselves through Montauk Lighting into design and interior design, the more strongly I feel about good design. And good design doesn't mean you have to use an architect. You can use a building designer, but good design is all about making sure that you're getting the maximum bang for buck for your home, and you're getting maximum output out of your home.
It's good design for you.
Correct. Yeah. Like I think that is the most important thing, because it doesn't matter if someone doesn't like it. Again, like you could like a musician and your best friend might not like them, but again, they're an amazing musician. But the same with your home. Like, I think if you love your home and it makes you feel warm and it gives you this hug when you come through the door at night after a crazy day of work, that is the ultimate. Like, that is good design, because it's captured what you are as a person, and it's managed to wrap it all up into a place that makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, it's the best thing. Yeah.
Nice. When we did our kitchen, I finessed so much over the cabinets where I worked out where each appliance was going to go, and I had all of the sizes of them, so I understood this cupboard was going to have these appliances in. Yep, that's going to fit, and this is where the chopping boards are going to go. And like, it was absolutely down to that last detail, and the annoying process to go through, but I think such an important process to go through as well.
I mean, our kitchen designer asked how big our pots were, and do you buy oil in bulk, and do you have the big tins or the little tins? And so she created cupboards for those things in particular. So, it was, again, like an invaluable experience, because you get then a final result that is exactly what you need.
Well, imagine moving into the house and then you get your box of Wheaties and you try and put them in the pantry shelf, and they're too tall to fit in the shelves.
Exactly. It's trouble.
And then after the plans were done, what's the next step in terms of, like, sometimes people go down the path and they get some beautiful plans done. They go, oh, love these, and then they get council approval, and then they get a builder to price it, and their $500,000 builds come in at 1.4 million.
Yeah.
Are there approaches that you use to make sure that the plans are going to align with your budget? Because you said before you had a tight budget, or relative to the level of build you had, you had a budget that you wanted to meet. So how did you approach that side of it?
There were two things going on. One was, we needed to get a bank loan. And so the bank was really particular about loaning to owner builders and the kind of detail you needed. So the bill of quantities for us was like absolutely imperative. So
Can you explain what a bill of quantities is for people?
yeah, so it's essentially it's your Bible for the build. Like it literally is something that you have an estimator look at. They'll take your plans, and they will essentially list every component of the build, nuts and bolts,
literally
like
it has
literally
screws and
the
yes, it's
whole
everything.
thing. And they'll ask you questions about finishes and all of those kind of things, and you can give them a fairly good overview of what it is you're wanting to achieve. And then they will put that into this amazing spreadsheet and spit out not only the quantities of things that you might need, but also the budget and what that's going to cost.
Mhm.
So we managed to do that pretty quickly once we had a almost final plan to make sure that we were okay. Dad was also great in sort of saying, approximately it's going to be this much given the square meterage and what we can do with that. And so it all happened in tandem. So we kind of wanted to get moving on the build. So we really wanted to get these things happening and working in tandem so that when the plans were complete, we could literally go straight to council, demolish, start building.
And then with that bill of quants, were you getting key trades to sort of price check some of those stages?
Yeah, we did absolutely. So we got our kitchen designers to check and make sure, even though we didn't know exactly what we wanted, whether that allocation was appropriate.
Yep.
And so we did sense check. We sense checked windows. We sense checked a few of those things, and yeah, it was an important thing to do. We also had to take into consideration the savings that we would make. So by using Dad and having those contacts, what that would do to the budget and how that would impact it. So having the sort of no holds bar bill of quantities was a really important thing because it was close to where we were and we knew that we were going to make savings, which we made a conscious decision to be like, okay, if we make savings, it then goes into the finishes. So we needed to make sure that we got that house in as best we could to create what we wanted inside as well.
And for trades, a bill of quants is a really valuable tool because it allows them to easily quote up without.
Well, exactly. But also for an owner builder to know what you're ordering and what you have to order, like, well, you're going to figure out what timbers you need, like how that, if you're not from a building background, the bill of quantities is your Bible. It effectively is the most important document other than maybe a project schedule, but some people don't need those. The bill of quantities is like by far the most important tool because it really does help you finalize your quotes. It wasn't something I thought about because I didn't do that for Coogee. It was just like, let's just do this, whatever. Whereas this one, I think because of the level of detail and the budget and the tips I was given when I attended my very first owner builder course, it was like, oh, that's actually really cool. And then the bank was like, oh, you need this document because we're not going to loan you money unless you can show us that you've got this under control and you know what the costs are, because inevitably, like an owner build can get some pretty significant overruns.
So I
think if you've watched Grand Designs, I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious.
It was the least sexy, most important part of the build.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind a spreadsheet, but man, numbers and me, we're not big buddies.
And then in terms of that time investment for you, did you know what it would like? Was it clear at the outset what that would look like, or is there a general rule of it's going to be a couple of hours every day through the build? Or
I don't think there's a rule, and I think that depends on what you're building and to what level you're building. I don't think I realized how much it would take out of me. Like it was a big undertaking, and working full time and trying to manage that and go through that process and make sure that things were as they should, because as an owner builder, it is your responsibility to make sure that it's structurally sound and all of those things. So that on top of making choices and selections and working with Myaree to kind of figure out what we wanted this thing to look like, and then getting a call because we needed to get a welder on site and a high-ab to bring in a steel beam, and just like, oh my goodness, all of these things were a lot.
In one day, you might be on site in the morning and then taking calls during the day, choosing some materials, doing
Yeah.
spreadsheets of quotes at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And then coming here after work and cleaning the site, or being here on the weekend and making sure that things were clean, or doing stuff with dad and helping him with walls or whatever. It was a lot. And I think it is an incredible experience, but it's also a really hard one.
Jumping in just to remind you to make sure you head over to the website or the Instagram page and complete the simple 7-question survey for your chance to win the $800 6-week interior design course courtesy of Homebase.
A majority of owner builders will have some sort of trade background. A lot don't, though. So there are a lot of owner builders who won't really do much other than maybe project schedule, budgeting, all that kind of stuff, and really rely on other people to do the work, other than maybe sweep the site or something like that. And that's cool. If you can find the right team of people and you can have the confidence that they can do that, that's great. I think the added bonus of just having, being a tradie or having someone on your team that is that you get some additional cost savings. And in my corner, had a bricklayer with 60 years experience and who could help actually bring the structure, and do an incredible job on doing that, and have the confidence that that was going to be correct. It's a double brick house. It's a double story, suspended slab, all that kind of stuff. There are all those things that kind of come into play, which I think would make me feel supremely uncomfortable if I didn't have that backing. It would be a little bit hairy, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hand it to builders. I mean, there is a lot of responsibility that comes with a build, and things can go wrong, and you really have to be on top of it. Checking steel reinforcements, and having the foresight to kind of check things in advance before the next layer comes onto the house, and before the roof tiles come on, and checking strapping, and all of those things that
you can't check it all at the end.
No, like once it's covered, it's covered. So you've got to really have an understanding of what your obligations are and what the codes are and how things should be and what they need to look like and how they need to be connected before you move to the next step. It's like the most, I think, important thing in the whole build. And one of the best pieces of advice I got was to make sure you use a building inspector at key points of the build. That kind of knowledge and that kind of security blanket is really good. It is super helpful because it gives you some confidence to kind of move forward and make sure that you are getting the things right when you're putting the slab up, making sure that the engineering drawings and the steel is correct, and making sure that it has been installed correctly and that the right concrete's being used, and all those kind of things was, I think, again, really important. Slab down, roof ups, all of those kind of key stages, making sure that everything was tickety-boo. So,
a building inspector point's really valid.
Oh, there is no point getting a building inspector at the end of your build. Sure, they can pick up stuff, and they'll pick up superficial stuff and cosmetic stuff, and the floor's not level and the top of your architrave's not painted, or there's something missing in the roof, or that's fine. But what about what's underneath?
Yeah.
And that's where it's really important. And I would recommend that for anyone. So whether you own a building or whether you're building with a builder, you have the right to do that.
And when someone's becoming an owner builder, do they have to do an owner builder course? Like what does that look like in terms of getting?
Yeah, so to get your owner builder license, there are sort of like a checklist that the building commission has, or DMIRS now, and the checklist is you have to show that you have done some education around the owner builder process, and whether that's a course at Homebase or an online course or something like that. You have to show and prove that you've done that. And so you tick off these points and these checklists, which is good. I think it's a good starting point, because I think there needs to be some education before you do become an owner builder. If you're in the trade, you obviously tick off a lot of points. So doing a course is not necessary.
So for people who are pretty cluey, maybe they've done some renovations, they're pretty handy, they might not have a trade background, they go and do the course. Are there other things that they should be doing, whether it's on the checklist or not, to help them be a little bit more competent through the build?
I think it depends on how hands-on you're going to be. Like, I think they're just like, they're probably like life skills. It's like, managing money and managing budgets and managing people, because like you've got a bunch of people working in this space, and you've really got to make sure that you're on side with them and that they're working for you and working positively for you and getting the best out of them. So, I think sometimes people might not consider a bunch of trades on site as part of your team. Like, they are supremely your team right there, right then, because they have to work harmoniously together. They're on top of one another. They're doing whatever they do, but they also have to communicate. And so, you have to be positive, and you have to, I think, building an environment on a building site that is positive and communicative and all of that kind of stuff is very beneficial. So you can't learn that, but I think, if you've got life skills that you can put into place on a build, then why not? Yeah.
And then did you do things to facilitate that in terms of like site meetings with?
Yeah, site meetings, morning teas, donuts, coffee, like all of that, like all of those things that can keep people motivated and on your side through the build is very important. And, meeting here on site is obviously the most beneficial thing. Working with them, figuring things out. Again, being able to zip here during the day if there was an issue on site to nut something out and solve a problem. Great. It was amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Or call dad.
Yes, I'll call dad. Yeah. Without those relationships, you're not going to get the conversations that you need through the build, because there's so many, whether it's an opportunity that's come up that a trade's noticed, or there's an issue.
Yeah. Hey, I've stuffed up. Yeah. I'm really sorry. Can we figure this out? Yes, of course we can. That's fine. Don't worry.
Thank you for telling me.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for not hiding it. Like, that was fine. Like, we had those things popped up. Of course they do. Or something hasn't quite worked out to how it was on the plan. It's okay. We can figure it out. There's no big deal.
Were there any things that you wish you'd done differently, or things that if you were doing it again, you would have approached how you designed them differently based on how you live in the space now?
We don't have a lot of regrets at all. I think one of the things that we do regret was maybe not having a landscape architect as well. So actually completing the yard and the front yard and the backyard, and actually really creating these incredible spaces that were completely resolved. We can do that now, but back in the day we couldn't. So they were just trade-offs, I think. And it's something that you can definitely work towards. We don't dislike our backyard. It gets used a lot, but there could have been things that could have been done better. I am always of the belief, and I've said this to many people, I'm like, build the home that you want. Don't build a home for resale, particularly if it's a home for you and a family home. Build what you want, because there is some crazy guy or another crazy person that's going to love what you've built. Don't feel scared about putting your own sort of fingerprint and your own kind of personality behind your home.
People do, they worry. They worry about it a lot. They look in the paper and they see a lot of the same homes, or they talk to a real estate agent and say, what do I need to sell? And the real estate agent say, well, you can't do a 2x2. You need to do a 4x2. Guess
what? A lot of people will love a 2x2. Again, it's sort of it's a really I say this a lot to people. at Homebase in particular. I'm like, are you happy with that? Is it really what you want?
Hmm.
You think about how much you love or dislike that particular thing you've just chosen.
Yeah.
Are you doing it because you feel obliged to do it and because the magazines told you, or are you doing it because you want to do it and
Yeah.
it's something that you love?
Well, if we take that 2x2 versus 4x2 example, if you wanted to build a 2x2, but you decide you're going to build a 4x2 because that's what the market wants, you're spending money on spaces that you know you're not going to use. That's money that could be reinvested into like living areas
Correct.
and al frescoes and spaces that actually going to improve the quality of your life, as opposed to rooms that you need to clean or keep the door closed.
100%. Absolutely, completely agree. I think you build a home for what you need and for how you live. And like I said to you, circumstances change, and Marie and I know that quite well. We built a home for a specific reason, and for us to have a family home, and it hasn't worked out, but that's okay. We still love this place, and we're gonna make the most of those rooms that haven't been used, and we're gonna do something really special with them. So that's okay. Yeah, I think you need to just focus on enjoying what you're doing and building something that's gonna make you really happy.
Yeah.
Because you can never tell what's gonna happen down
Yeah,
the road.
absolutely.
So, yeah.
So it sounds like if you're thinking about owning a building, there's you need to have a base of knowledge
Yes.
or access to someone who has that base of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have the ability to be available through the stages of the build.
Mm-hmm.
Open lines of communication with, if you've got a build partner, with them, and as well as with the project team.
Mm-hmm.
Any other, I guess, willingness to learn as well. You're going to be
Yes.
learning things from an educational point of view.
Absolutely.
Any other key?
You have to be comfortable with making mistakes. You have to be patient. You have to know that you're going to be wearing many hats. I think you also have to, have the capacity to, how do I say it? I think you just have to make sure that you are capable of tackling something that is probably bigger than you would ever imagine, because it's not easy. And there
you're
are
not
so
going to be
many.
able to understand
No,
how big it will be as well until you get
no.
into it.
There are so many moving parts. Like it is like I do admire builders. It's a big undertaking. There are so many things that need to happen, and generally, it is the biggest investment you make in your life, right? Building a home or buying a home. Like these things are the biggest thing you will ever do.
Yeah.
And they're serious undertakings. And so they are important to you. They are important for your sanity. They are just very important for life. And so having a roof over your head that you have somehow managed to play a very big part in is very rewarding, but also tricky, really, really tricky. And I don't think my dad's going to be able to build my next one, so I don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see.
And then looking back on the entire experience, are there any key moments or decisions that stand out as particularly rewarding or challenging?
I think the whole process of being able to build a house from scratch with Marie together was the best thing. To be able to walk into this house when it was finished was really quite magic. I think we still pinch ourselves to kind of say, "Oh my gosh, we're really lucky. Like this is cool. We love our neighborhood, we love our home, and none of this would have happened if we didn't go down this path." And so I think I really appreciated the time I got to spend with my dad. As much as we are chalk and cheese, I think it was really cool to be able to do something quite intense and enjoyable and rewarding with him. And I think again, learning, like the learnings I got from this process have been like seriously invaluable. In particular, given my position at Homebase and the fact that we do help a lot of owner builders, and we do give a lot of advice, and we have an owner builder support network, and there's all these things that have serendipitously come together, which has been remarkable. Actually, it's been really cool. I would definitely recommend people consider it. I think if you have got support and you have got the means and you can do it, then it's a great experience. But also, I feel like even building a new home with a builder, get involved, ask questions, and be really particular about what you want, and see and ask and seek from the builder, like how much can you get involved and be part of the process. I don't think you need to be arm's length.
I would almost argue that if you want to be arm's length, maybe you shouldn't be building in the first place.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's important. And I also feel like spend the time up front to make sure that what you are building is the right thing for you. You know, we see a lot of smaller renovations and like granny flat additions and that kind of stuff being undertaken by owner builders, and that's a great way to do it. Like,
Good first step.
really
Absolutely.
great way to kind of sink your teeth into something, and to kind of understand the process, to feel comfortable with it, and you know, to do something that you can control. Yeah, I think if you're interested in the process, then get hands on somehow. A lot of people are a little bit scared off by having to do that, and that's okay, and that's fine. I totally get it. There have been some moments and some discussions with people who were wanting to undertake an owner builder project that were like, you really shouldn't be doing that. It's not, you know, this is not gonna turn out well. You're not able to read plans and not understanding what trades would be needed and required, and just the general gist of how things work. I think you can kind of pick that up pretty quick. That's not gonna save you any money whatsoever.
The builder has a margin for a reason.
Correct. Yeah, and absolutely deserve to. I think, you know, it is a big undertaking. Yeah.
And if people are interested in learning more about the owner builder course at Homebase, where do they go?
You can head online to homebaseperth.com.au, and find out about the owner builder course. It runs monthly, and we cover quite a bit of ground over a day. Lots of tips, lots of things to watch out for. What are the processes? What are the stages? Get a nice little piece of documentation to take with you that helps you along the way. It's just a really great overview and a really good insight into the process, particularly if you're not comfortable or you're not too sure of what it's about. It's just a really good, short, sharp introduction to help you kind of look out for these pitfalls. These are the things you need to be aware of.
Yep.
These are the important things, safety, all of those kind of things. There's lots of really great tips in there that kind of puts you in it'll either freak you out or you be like, yeah, I've got it. I've got this. So it's a goodie.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, Gino, thank you very much for your time today and for the chat.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some really good takeaways from that. For me, the key ones were that bill of quants, the most boring and potentially valuable document in your build journey, and that one coupled with having that sort of right network and some of that background information there. So educating yourself as much as possible before starting the journey. Remember, there is the owner builder course here in Perth for people who want to do that, which is I think it's a 1-day course on the weekend. You can have a look at that one on their website. And we are looking for a few more guests on the show. We've got a couple sort of lined up, but if you have an interesting build story that you want to share, or you've got someone else who you want to dob in, head on over to australianbuildstories.com and you can fill out the form there, or you can shoot me an email, which is also on the website. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.